Good morning, everybody. Someone says in the comments, it's Pull Me Thursday.
Yeah,
not
you're
Puza
right,
Thursday.
Shalina.
Pull Me Thursday.
Puza Thursday. Did you see the
Mm.
thing a couple of days ago with a poster from one of like the hangout spots that says "NSFAS ingenile" because
No?
it's that time of the month, y'all. I'm gonna find it
Yeah.
for you.
Well, people, I mean, everybody, who doesn't love the end of the month? Although you must never make the mistake that I made. What was it? I think it was end of October or November last year, where I went to the shops at the end of the month. Yes, sis. And I mean, I've got no excuse, right? Because I can go to the shops anytime I want. In terms of, I don't have to go on the Saturday. I've got time during the week and so on. But yes, sis, if you go to the shops on the last weekend of the month, it is chaos. It is ugly. No.
Don't do it.
Pumi's
I
just shaking.
actually just hate going to the shops. I just actually hate just going to the shops.
Yeah, I do too, and I think I've spoken about this on the show. Mostly on a Monday, I sit and complain about the kind of people I've seen in the shops, but it's because I don't actually like. It's not the people. It's because I actually don't like shopping.
Yeah, no, shopping is not that great. But also, Ryan didn't open the blind, so now I can't see outside. Please, Ryan. Ryan is amazing here in the morning, guys. He even brings me coffee. See?
Making sure you
Do
got
you see his
everything.
white stand here bringing me coffee? but I love that, like, all these shopping apps that like deliver in 60 minutes or whatever it is. The only thing about that is you don't get all of the excitement of seeing new things that you've never seen before that you can try out. And also when they have those little stations of people that have little food things that you can try out in the shop. You know what I'm talking about? Like
I don't
sampling.
No.
What? Woolworths, baby, you have to, because like you never. I don't know what kind of juju they put in the stuff that they put on those shelves that you eat, but like every new product that they like put out there, if you try it, you're gonna love it. Serious juju on that thing.
Well, I think that the best thing is this this delivery stuff. I mean, the new lights in the studio are from Take a Lot. I go on there, and I was talking about it with Lebang the other day, and she's like, "Oh," because I said to her, I did like a late night midnight shop about 2 weeks ago. I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't get back to sleep, so I used some retail therapy. I ended up buying a whole bunch of stuff for the studio and some other shit that I probably don't need. And you make terrible decisions. Everybody knows this.
Let me tell you what you don't need in your life.
What?
The one day only app.
Oh yeah.
That you really don't need in your life. And it's all well and good when it starts out. You're just like, oh, there's all these specials, and you like look at it, and then you get addicted because every day at midnight they wipe it clean and they set up a whole new set of like, so you have to check it every day, and every day you see something that's like, oh, that would be nice.
Well,
don't do it.
Who is it? It's Mash who told me about this app that he uses, where he gets all these special deals on restaurants and on massages and all that kind of thing. And he uses it all the time. He swears by it, in fact. Says it's the best thing ever. But I don't know. Sounds like it could be a bit dodgy. Plus, it's another thing to spend. Any temptation that I find in my life to spend money, I try to get rid of unless it's essential. Like I was talking to someone yesterday, they get bread and milk delivered every like 2 or 3 days to their house. Now, I think that would be amazing, but I know I won't go through. I don't know about you, Pumi, but it takes me 2 weeks to get through one of those long life milks because I don't drink a lot of milk, I don't use a lot of milk, and I don't have a hungry teenager in the house like you do.
Now that my hungry teenager only comes home on weekends, like my stuff lasts a lot longer in my house,
Yeah, I should hope
except when
so.
it's school
No,
holidays. But
I'm also trying to cut out bread because I love bread, but it's just,
don't
those
cut out bread.
carbs are just.
Gareth, do not
You
cut
say
out
don't?
bread. Don't cut
Okay,
out bread. It's the only food we pray for by name. How can it
that's
be
right.
wrong?
But
How can
Pums,
it be wrong?
did you notice how quickly I immediately went, oh, okay, well, I won't then. As soon as you suggested that, I was like,
Even if I said it's prayer.
I know. I agreed immediately. I was like, oh, well, anything to keep on. But tell me there isn't anything better than like ciabatta bread as it comes out of the oven. Oh, my God.
with
Mm,
with butter, yo. Listen, do not cut out bread. You can cut it down. You can, but bread is life, Baba. Bread is life. Even when the Israelites were starving in the desert, God sent them manna.
that's right. But manna, they've discovered, wasn't actually bread. It was
Some
stuff.
kind of bread.
Yes, no, but it's stuff that certain insects. Because I remember studying this stuff once. It fascinated me that God had sent manna to the Israelites in the desert, and I became just obsessed with that story. And I remember reading about these certain animals that like they make a sort of carbohydrate that they deposit on trees, and that this is the stuff. By the way, while Pumi's resetting her internet because she's in the studio in Johannesburg, um, I also don't. So just to clear up here, Tracy says long life milk. No, man, really. No. It's not the stuff that you buy that you could leave on the shelf and it's made of God knows what plastic or whatever. No, this is just it's normal. I think it's clover, which is probably my favorite kind of milk if I'm going to be particular about things. I mean, everybody, also as you get older, you have your favorite kind of everything, even the stuff that you probably don't need to have a favorite of. So it comes in those Tetra packs, but it usually lasts 2 weeks instead of just the 1 week. Now, I don't know if that's a bad thing or if that's a good thing. I'm still trying to figure out whether it's, sensible or whether it's not. But to me, that's the one that tastes the best and it lasts the longest. And I don't go through stuff. My worst, I'm sure there are lots of people who are listening to the show now who feel the same way. My worst is going to the shops, buying a bunch of stuff, especially perishable stuff. So vegetables, fruit, milk, cheese. And then after a week, you realize like all the stuff you bought is expired and shitty. And I'm not schnorrer. I'm not sitting around counting the pennies but when I have to throw away a whole lot of stuff because I bought it and it's now off, it's fraught, it's not working anymore, it's expired, it just makes me sad. I think, what did I waste all that money on? And it's probably just because you could see it. Like I know I've wasted money on dumber things than that, but you could see it. Hey, Pums.
Yep. I feel
Sorry,
that way
lost you.
about. Yeah, kuningi la studio, guys. Kuningi lokho kwenzakalayo, so just bear with us a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah,
I feel that way too. I feel that way too about the nice thing about the ordering apps, though, is besides the fact that you don't have to drive anywhere, is that the stuff comes and you put it directly into the fridge. Unlike when you go and you shop and now you've got all of the cold things and the frozen things and they're in the boot of your
yeah,
car
in the boot, and you have things to do in between. Yeah.
and it's like, it's also about, because that's the other thing that makes the stuff go off, right? It's about that cold chain handling. It's about how you handle it between the fridge in the store and the fridge at your house. That also plays a factor. A lot of
By
things
the
to
way,
think about.
much better connection that we have with you now, Pumi. The studio
Yeah.
connection was not so good. Oh, we've just sorted that out. So this is an interesting one from Eminem. It says trying to shop at Checkers with all the collections for Checkers 6060 app is similar to driving in traffic with the taxis. It's chaos. Well, that must show us.
Yeah.
That must prove that these things are becoming way more popular and people are using them way more. I mean, you see them on the road, right?
Mm.
They're all over. I mean, these bikes with the 6060 orders are everywhere.
And the dash and the whatnot, and they drive badly. I think they don't
Well,
have licenses. I think People
Um,
are just like in need of the job. They're like, you're gonna learn how to drive on the road. It's always also all the delivery, like the Uber Eats or whatever. I often drive home from the office at night. I usually leave the office kind of like after 6 or after 7. And then that's when all the Uber Eats guys are. They're not well, like they're
mm,
not well lit. Some of those bikes are very suspicious. And the drivers, ooh,
look, this is a thing that I hear a lot of people talking about. But would I give up Uber Eats and all these other delivery things for for them to be safer or to have less accidents? Probably not.
So no, I have to tell you the story. I was driving home the one day, and I could hear, and there was a little bit of traffic building up at a traffic light, and I could hear coming at the back, like the screeching of trying to put the brakes on. And then I just heard the falling apart of something. And when I looked up, it
Oh my
was
god.
but this guy's entire bike, it was like watching those cartoons, when like Bugs Bunny, the bike
Mm,
is on, dismantles itself. That's what
mhm.
happened to this guy. Like as he was like braking, this whole thing just fell apart as he was braking so hard, not trying to get into the bumper of the guy. Everything fell apart. It was so hectic. I was so sad for him.
And these
I was
these
also
guys,
sad for the person whose food was all over the floor.
yeah, I feel for them because it's sometimes been one of us, right? But yeah, I do. I don't think that they make a lot of money. The margins are very thin on
They
these
can't
things.
possibly.
Some people don't tip well. I always feel the need to tip. I've got a standard like 15% tip set on mine. So, and I use them a lot because why the hell should I cook and would I cook when I don't have to? Am I right? Because also I'm not romantic about food. I don't like spending a lot of time in the kitchen worrying about that stuff. So I'll use them 15% and that's good. So I
So I
use it a
think
lot.
I told you about the book that I read last year sometime called Influence Empire.
Yeah.
That's all about social media. So the rise of social media in China and how it's impacted all of these things.
Yeah.
Because of course, Uber Eats, Checker 60, Shane, all of those things are some form of that's actually what they are. They work in the back of that ecosystem of social networking, and they also the retailing behind it, and the algorithms and all of that kind of stuff. It's all around, and incredibly fascinating book. It's called Influence Empire by a guy named Lulu Chen.
Yeah.
But when you read that book, you have a different appreciation for what all of that, the business behind all of these models. And also you get to recognize, I mean, we are a very small population in terms of the market share that we are, because there's not a lot of us. I mean, even though you see a lot of people on the bikes in the shops doing the dash or the 60/60 shopping,
Mhm.
the number of people that actually operate in that part of the commerce,
Yes.
um, as you know,
It's tiny.
it's very
First of
small.
all, I mean, if you have disposable income in South Africa, and by disposable income, I mean like you have more money after your debit orders have come out, you actually have some cash, or you have access to debt, you're in a tiny percentage of the population. Most people are living hand to mouth. So
So
it's
e-
tiny. It's probably what, 5 to 8 million people out of the 60 odd million. It's that
even
small.
less, even less. I mean, I
Oh my
see
God.
I see Uber Eats at home when I go to my parents. So I see Uber Eats in Soweto. I see Mr. D in Soweto. Uh,
Mhm.
but still, it's still the number of people that operate in that commercial space are actually very few. And it's unlike places like, I mean, when we first heard about Wuhan, we had never heard about that city. And then we find out that there are 8
Yeah.
million people in that city.
Absolutely. That's the whole active economic population of South Africa there, just in that one city. It's incredible.
That's, but even like Mash's discount voucher app or one day only app, the things that make those discounts work, or that are just, there's such an amazing algorithm behind it and such an amazing technical aspect to
Yeah.
making all of those things work. And this book is
Well,
just
I mean,
lays it all bare.
you just think of how brilliant those payment gateways are, and the fact that you press order, goes through immediately, the tip goes through, the delivery is processed, it goes onto the machines. I mean, there are so many things that work here. Do you remember how it used to be before these apps came along? You'd have
Hey,
to,
when
you'd have
phone
to
Mr.
talk to someone,
Delivery.
and you'd have to phone them, and then they would always get your order wrong. And so most people would go, you know what, it's not worth it. I'll just rather go and buy the stuff myself or order at the counter, because this is not it's not working. Half the reason I trust these things now is because you can look at the menu, you can click it yourself, you can have them change something if you want to, and then you know what you're in for, right?
Listen,
Really?
yeah.
'Cause I mean, just explaining, okay, who are you delivering to? Cliff, CLI, what? You know, and you used to have these discussions that just went on and on and on with people who weren't able to hear you properly because they're in a noisy kitchen or whatever. Then you had to explain where to go. I mean, it was just it would never have worked. You'd have to collect most of the time yourself. Do you remember those days? You'd order the
Hey,
takeaway,
hey.
then you go and collect them.
We are in the future, guys. This is us. We're heading towards that even though we still don't have proper hoverboards, and as you know, I'm salty about that. Even though
Mhm.
Back to the Future promised
I know.
us
They
hoverboards
they
years ago.
I am still waiting for mine. I mean, Pumi, I dream at night of hoverboards because of that goddamn movie with Michael J. Fox. You know, he was sliding around through that town of theirs. I
Yeah.
thought, what a cool world we're heading towards. TikTok, everybody. I'm still waiting.
Here we are. Oh, years past the deadline. We still
I
don't have
know.
hoverboards, but okay. We're moving right along, but we are now in that future. We're close enough. We don't have flying cars yet. Don't have hoverboards. I don't know if we'll ever have the flying cars, but at least we've got ChatGPT.
A rebellious Ruth says a Woolies bike lightly hit the back of me a couple of months ago. I didn't even
What?
bother getting the car, getting put. What? Didn't
What is
even put the out of the car. Okay, it wasn't worth the trouble. It was one of those autocorrects.
but what is lightly hit? What is lightly hit? Because
Like,
it's
I think bumper. I mean, that's typical bumper bashing, right? And
yo,
look,
daughter. It's when they take out your mirror, because
oh,
that's where that's where the danger is those side mirrors, because they
Matthew says a 10% tip is good. I know some people who give 0% tip, and now, to me,
hi hi
you know,
hi.
like, it's a tip, I understand, but that person who's riding that bike is probably dependent on that. They're not getting anything from the restaurant. So to me, 15% of whatever the bill is seems reasonable, because it means I'm saving myself that money and time by not going to the shops myself. So I have no problem paying a decent tip there. Restaurant, different story. If you get bad service, you can decide, right? And we've discussed this before. You can go up, you can go down. Depends on how the service goes. And you don't have to feel obliged to give someone a tip if they're really shitty at their job. But if they're actually driving to you and they're spending their petrol money and they are taking the risks that these drivers do, I think it's worth the 15.
It is worth that tip. It
Matthew wants
is
to know, Pumi, here's something that keeps coming up. What is the deal with Soweto only having 2 hours of load shedding during stages 4 and 5, while we in
fake
Linwood have
news.
8 to 10 hours off? Is that fake news?
Fake news.
Because I've seen people screenshot the Eskom's Push app where you can see Soweto is only getting 2 hours. Is that true?
Fake news. I was at my
Really?
parents' house. I was at my parents' house on Saturday,
Yeah.
and we had 6 hours of load shedding. The weekend before that, no, not two, the 2 weekends before that, when we were gone to KZN,
Hmm.
they had no power at my parents' house. So my sister stayed behind. There was no power from Thursday to Sunday.
Jesus. Okay.
From Thursday to Sunday. Fake news.
Yeah.
Inga, who we work with at our office, his laptop, young intern filmmaker, he's going to be huge. He's going to be a huge director. Trust me. His laptop's power cable doesn't work very well. So he always has to stay plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
He has up to 8-10 hours of no power a day. So
God.
he has to come into the office every day. And he lives in Soweto.
Yeah.
Fake news.
Okay. Well, then we've at least sorted that out, because there's all these rumors floating around. You know what people are like? They want to know. They've got to know the truth. As Nixon said, people have got to know.
You know, people also we also have to manufacture outrage about the unfairness of some people having and most of us not. It's fake
Right.
news. There's nobody who's first of all, those screenshots can be photoshopped.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I just wonder what kind of person goes to the trouble of photoshopping. So I believe someone would, but I just ask myself, like, what kind of sad, miserable person is going to spend their time photoshopping something in order to create outrage? It's like, it's such a dumb thing to do. When you could be doing something productive, this is what you're doing? Drives me crazy.
God. But riling up the people, it's
I know,
provocative.
it's some people's favorite thing. And you could even see, like, the way people, no matter what's going on in the news. I mean, you want to talk about this DJ Zinhle thing, right? And we got to get into that too, because I think there are a lot of questions around this that many people are thinking at the moment. I was watching the story in America of, John Fetterman is this guy who's got the brain damage from the stroke.
Yes,
He had
the one in hospital.
Right, but he's also in Senate, which is just weird. So John Fetterman had this stroke, and he's definitely not coping. Like, he needs a machine that gives him captions so that when people are talking to him or he's talking, he can read the machine with the captions so he can kind of catch up. But he's still not, he's struggling. I mean, it's really difficult. His brain damage is quite bad. And he's now a US senator because he got elected in Philadelphia. Anyway, his wife, instead of being a good wife and saying to him, you know what, John, you're not great and you can't make these kinds of decisions. I'm going to make the decision to pull out of this race and we'll look after you because your health is number one. That's what any good wife would do, you would think. But she was so hungry and ambitious to be a senator's wife herself that she pushed through. And I think the Democratic Party also were behind this. They were like, no, we've got to push through for this. Instead of him dropping out, they could have gone with another candidate. Who knows? Anyway, so she is there holding his hand. She's saying, no, there's nothing wrong with him. They campaign. He wins. They go to the Senate. Now he's checked himself into hospital because he's not coping. The stress is very high. He's clearly not dealing with all the long-term effects of the stroke. And what does his wife do? She packs the car up and takes the kids and goes off to, like, Niagara Falls and spends a week or more away while her husband's in hospital. This is not a good person. Now, you can argue, oh, well, she needed a break. She's also under huge stress, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sorry, if that's the case, you don't make your husband run for Senate. And when he has run and he's won, and then he checks himself into hospital, you don't abscond with the children. And she's putting all these statements on social media. She's now saying on social media, oh, we just want to be left alone for a little bit. The kids are in the glare of the publicity. I'm like, but if you hadn't run for Senate, your kids wouldn't be in the glare of publicity. You'd have your husband at home. You'd be able to spend time together. You'd be able to look after him, help him recover from his stroke, and he could have run the next time, maybe. But no, you needed this. She's got to be one of the most selfish people I've read about in politics recently. And then the Democratic Party say, well, if anything happens to Fetterman, they'll just run her as the senator. So clearly there's a plan here, and it's got nothing to do with this guy's health.
No.
It upsets me. It's like, what happened to people just being honest and decent with each other? It really, really upsets me that people are behaving like this.
That ship has sailed many, many years ago. And that's why when we see people being honest, people having raw emotion, people.
Yeah.
It's so shocking
Yeah.
because we don't see it as much as we used to. That's just I don't know. The problem with the world today is people. Generally, all of us.
Well,
Sucks.
why don't you tell us about the DJ Zinhle things? Because she's obviously in mourning. The AKA situation was just a couple of days ago. I mean, it feels like, because our news cycle's 3 days, 5 days maybe. It feels like just yesterday. Well, to me, it feels like a long time already. But it's just 2 weeks.
It is just 2 weeks, and and just watching her go through, because this is the other thing, is everything is on all the time. So it's
Mhm.
whether it's on social media, whether it's cameras in your face, whether it's other people's cameras in your face and phones, and so
Yeah.
everything is on all the time. But watching her and her daughter. So for those of you who don't know, DJ Zinhle has a daughter, with AKA.
Cairo.
And I don't know. I think she's maybe 6 or 7 years old. I'm not sure. I've never been in that part of the story that much. And obviously the little girl has lost her father, so it's quite a thing. DJ Zinhle is now married to somebody else. And they I think they had quite a like public relationship and whatever happened. But they seemed to, watching all of the stuff now, they seem to have had a really good co-parenting relationship. And she was in mourning. She was in shock. She was in mourning. She was also helping her daughter through a very traumatic experience. A little like 6, 7 year old girl through a very traumatic experience out in the public eye. And she was
Right.
posting on she was posting about it on her Instagram stories and all of that kind of stuff. And a couple of days ago, um, and everybody, so there was quite two very distinct schools of thought, right? There were people who were very upset that DJ Zinhle was so visibly hurt and upset that this has happened to AKA. And their reasoning is that she's married to somebody else. How dare she have such like
Oh,
emotions
you
for an
must be joking.
ex-boyfriend? I kid you not.
What?
How dare she have such visible emotions for an ex-boyfriend? And then there were people who were like, of course she has a relationship with this person, but also her child is in it. And as she's being a good mother,
Of
being
course.
part of this experience and helping her child through this trauma. It has been ongoing. The number of people feeling sorry for, I think her husband's name is Bongs or Debongs or something, right? And a couple of
Hmm.
days ago, I saw a screenshot, speaking of
Hmm?
photoshopped, which looked like DJ Zindle's stories or something, but it was also quite a disparaging little note about her husband and Keith and AKA being dead and being left with this guy now. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this has got to be fake news. But it's created such outrage. And I kind of let it go. But yesterday,
But what is up
what
with
are
people
people
also
doing?
inserting themselves into the story? Like you suddenly, your feelings on this matter. Like you've got a problem with DJ Zinhle's feelings about X, Y, and Z, but you are about 3 or 4 degrees removed from that, and you want us to take you seriously. No self awareness, none, zero.
No self-awareness and such vitriol. Such
Mm,
vitriol. And I really, and I get it. There are lots, and as we are evolving in our new way of being and living, our traditions and cultures, all people, Black people, white people, are changing
sure.
and evolving to accommodate the world that we live in now, right? So this is the
Right.
ex-girlfriend. They have got a child together. It requires a different way for all the families to behave, to work together when such a thing happens. It doesn't have to be tragic death like AKAs, but any kind of, just a passing on or a changing of circumstances. Which, and obviously, because it's happening in South Africa, we're thinking a lot about it. But you know what's happening with Bruce Willis, right?
Well, before we move on to Bruce Willis, because I've heard this story, it's also sad. And you know, it could happen to anyone, frankly. These are the famous people that we're talking about. But just on the AKA thing, I don't think it's so much cultural. I mean, those changes are happening and people are coping with them or they're not coping with them. But I also think there's a level of emotional immaturity about so much of this that really drives me crazy. It's like you've got a bunch of people who are just essentially very, very childish. They've got childish emotions. They're in adult bodies. They've got X number of years on the clock already, but they kind of behave and react and are emotional to a degree that no sensible adult should be. This is acceptable behavior for a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, but the wailing, the screaming, the emotional acting out, it seems to me like this is the kind of behavior, and it needs to be called out because we've prioritized emotion. You know, there's this brilliant book called Emotivism, which I read, I don't
Wow.
know, 2, 3 years ago. You got to read about this because it's all about how essentially the world has become performative. And for some people, it no longer matters what the content of what you're saying is. It's all about the delivery. In other words, if you are crying, and I saw Katy Perry, this is the weirdest thing, right? I never watch reality TV. Someone sent me a clip of Katy Perry on American Idol. And there's this guy who comes up and he is a survivor of a school shooting or something. And now he's there to sing a song. So he arrives on the screen and he starts telling his story. And now, of course, American Idol's just become this long whinge fest about how sad everyone's lives are. I mean, if you watched American Idol, you'd think that humanity was just beset with misery on every level because everyone has a sob story. And, oh, I was born with just half a leg. And, oh, my gran used to, I don't know, eat my intestines when I was 3. And, oh, I grew up and only half a biscuit was given to me at tea time. It's like these pathetic stories. Everyone has to milk all that shit. So Katy Perry starts listening to this guy's story and she has like a meltdown. She basically starts wailing and saying, oh, this country's so fucked. Everything's so terrible. I can't believe we have to live in a country where someone could go to a school and someone else could pull out a gun. But she's at high pitch. She's out of control.
On American Idol.
Or on the show. And I'm thinking, bitch, calm down. You have $400 million in the bank. America's treating you just fine. America's not so.
You're gonna be okay.
Katy Perry, if you can live the kind of life you do, where you get paid to pitch up on a TV show, and I know how that TV show works because I was on it too. You could get paid. She's worth what, 300, 400 million. She releases a couple of songs every now and then, aren't even written by her. She basically pitches up and gets paid. It is the easiest life anyone in human history has ever lived. And she's going to tell me that I must believe her histrionics on television when she's got this amazing life. And only in America in the year 2023 could someone like Katy Perry, who's of very low intelligence, possibly make the kind of money and have the kind of life that she does. And she's acting out because she knows that gets the reaction. And there are people dumb enough who are also emotionally immature in the audience who are going to go, oh, look what a great person Katy Perry is. She cares so much. Meanwhile,
and it blunts us.
I can bet my bottom dollar Katy Perry has never donated a single cent of all of her millions to a school shooting victim. I can bet you she's never gone to visit one of the schools where there was a shooting. I can bet you she doesn't even know what these towns look like. She goes where she can make money. And she behaves like this on TV because people think she cares. Now, I would rather have an emotionally cold person say, hey, really sorry to hear about your school shooting. Now sing, because this is a singing show. But Katy Perry knows she gets paid. She gets paid for the emotivism. She gets paid.
That's what they ask of her. But then it blunts us. I think it blunts us.
It drives me up the wall. Now, with this AKA thing, there were a whole bunch of people who've never met AKA. Sure, they were fans of his music, wailing and carrying on like they had never encountered him in their lives except through his music. And I understand music can make you emotional. I've cried about people who've died who are musicians that I've never met. But to do this performatively, in other words, not because you're feeling something truly, but because you want other people to see you performing something, is just outrageously cheap. And it makes me think that you just are not a serious person. Anyway, I think
No, it's true because it also blunts us. It makes us blunt to real emotion. So this hyper performance of all
I mean,
emotion.
the fact that some idiot on Twitter is commenting on DJ Zintle and saying like she's pretending to care about AKA because she's married, she should have moved on. The cheek of this. You're not even in this situation, you third rate 15 follower nobody in some shitty part of South Africa that no one's heard of. How dare you insert yourself into this because you want to be important? I mean, that's all it is. It's like, me too. Notice me also. It's like Katy Perry having a tantrum about school shootings. It's like, me too. I'm also in the story. Notice
I'm
me.
also important.
I've got lots of cameras on me all the time, and I got plenty of money in the bank, and I've got a celebrity lifestyle that is unparalleled in all of human history in terms of the attention and the love I get every day. But still, please notice me. I need to be important too. Me, Katy Perry, me. Unbelievable.
It's hectic. It's hectic,
Ridiculous.
and wanting to dictate
Yeah.
how people should respond and react. How
Well,
people, what the right thing is.
I think there's also, we've got to take the blame. When I say we, people in the media, all of us in society, frankly, because we've responded to this emotivism rather. It's a word, look it up, emotivism. And the book was, I remember it's been a while since I read it, but the book essentially said, we've put such an emphasis on this stuff that we no longer investigate the content of someone's point of view, opinion, thoughts, feelings even, because now it's all about how they perform. So, they have a tantrum, they scream, they wail, they react emotionally, and we're meant to give that as much credit as we would their cogent thoughts, which are either written down or thought through or spoken in full sentences. We don't do that anymore. Now it's all like just hysteria here, hysteria there. You get a car, you get a car, you get a car, and everyone's screaming the whole time. And so what's happened? We've just become like, oh, well, I don't care anymore. I don't care about any of this stuff. And you could see it in the kid.
Jeez, Gareth, I've just Googled emotivism because I was going to try and find the book so that I can look it up later. And I've never even heard this word, and there are 221,000 results in 0.03 seconds, and none of them are a book. There's so much happening here.
I'll find the book for you. But
now I'm going to be in a hole. Now I'm going to be in a hole, in a Google hole all day trying to figure this out. Thank you very much, Gareth.
It'll be worth it for me because I think this thing is at the center of why so much is getting confused. Why so many important things are being left by the wayside. And I honestly think that this is part of it, is that we don't, our emphasis is on this, on emotivism, rather than on content, on actual substance. So here's the actual definition. In philosophy, it's a term which is an ethical theory which regards ethical and value judgments as expressions of feeling or attitude and prescriptions
of action
rather than assertions or reports of anything. So
this is exactly it, right? It's about the prescription of the action. It's about everybody's prescribing how they think DJ Zintle should be responding to this thing, or how her husband should be responding, or how his family, like AKA's family, it's also prescriptive.
Right.
And this is the thing that I'm so fascinated to watch and contrast with, because I'd forgotten this until a couple of days ago. When we first saw Demi Moore, Ashton Kutcher, and Bruce Willis on holiday with the kids, and how it was so mind-blowing. And that, and they have Demi and Bruce and Bruce's current wife, and their kids are all grown up now. How they have all got a family unit or tribe or whatever you want to call it that
Sure.
works for all of them. And and everybody around it, and hence, and they were able to break out of this prescribed way of being
Correct.
in such a magnificent way. And now that, and I saw it again because Bruce Willis is not well, and has
What have you been diagnosed with? Is it Alzheimer's or dementia or something?
frontotemporal, yeah, so it's frontotemporal blah 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 dementia.
Right.
And it's
Same thing Joe
I mean,
Biden.
he's only 67. He's only 67, and so it's quite a devastating thing, and because
It's
that's
horrible.
very young. And the diagnosis, it affects his speech, it affects, because of the frontal temporal lobe that it has affected. But to
Mhm.
watch all, and the statement they put out yesterday is actually signed at the bottom, ladies of Willis Moore.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, right, right.
Yeah. But
I was like,
again, what is wrong with do people have a problem with Bruce being surrounded by his ex-wife, his children, his new wife in a moment where he probably needs a lot of support? I think this is beautiful. I think it's also very big of Ashton Kutcher. I think it's big of Demi Moore that they're able to show each other love. When your ex is someone who you just hate and you just cannot get along with, they might be a terrible person. That's entirely possible. But it's also possible that you aren't mature enough to have them in the right place for the right reasons. And sometimes that doesn't work out. I understand. Like sometimes people's personalities just don't allow for an adult, mature way out of things. But in this case, I love this story because to me, we talk about modern
oh,
families. We talk about modern families. Imagine you're him. You're Bruce Willis, and now you've just been diagnosed with this dementia, which means it's going to be an arduous road to the end, but the end is inevitable. And like you're not going to remember where you are by the time that happens. I mean, it's very sad for the man who gave us so many great movies. For the guy, I watched his roast years ago when they broadcast that, and I remember Demi Moore coming up and she made some devastatingly funny jokes about Bruce at the roast, and it was very, very cool because he sat there laughing, and I thought, well, this is healthy. There are not a lot of
sure.
people who can do that, and there was genuine love, despite the fact that she's moved on. She's with Ashton Kutcher. The kids
Oh
are all
no,
grown.
I again only found this out like yesterday that she's not with Ashton Kutcher anymore, and that when they broke up and got divorced, yeah, like in 2015 or something like that. Bruce
Wow.
Willis was the person that kind of helped Demi put the pieces back together. I know, right? But
Beautiful story.
you talk about the emotional maturity of all of the individuals involved, and kind
Yeah.
of and how it's worked
Oh,
for everyone.
obviously, sorry, of course. I mean, like this is how I wasn't paying attention. Ashton is married to Mila
I don't know who
Kunis.
that is. Oh,
She's also an actress. I don't think he cares anymore. He's got his own Brady Bunch. Agree, G. Hate the bullshit drama, people. Make it when it comes to shared parenting. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the point is still that they're all obviously mature enough for them to be around each other and not make it all about me. It's this me thing that so many people are constantly absorbed by, and you could see it. It's like if Pumi tells me a story, and she's like, "Oh, something terrible happened to me this week. I was hit by an Uber Eats driver." And the first thing I do is I go, "Oh, I was also hit by an Uber Eats driver last week, Thursday." You're like, "Oh, God, take a minute to listen to the person who's talking to you, to actually just give them a chance to say their say. And then if you're going to say anything, talk about their experience, ask them a question, make it about them before you immediately reflexively turn it into a me discussion." But that's what people do. People can't help themselves. A friend of mine lost a close family member the other day. And they said when they told someone about this, when they told almost everybody about this, the first thing those other people do goes, "Oh, well, I lost X, Y, and Z. I also lost somebody." Yeah, when you do that, you're not helping that person, right? It's
Yeah.
you're turning it into your story. And I'm afraid there are so many people who in the world at the moment, they can't help but make it about them every step of the way. And it's just so damn boring, where it becomes competing stories for the same amount of emotivism.
And
It's kind of,
emotional attention.
listen, if there's anything that keeps me single, it's this shit. I hear people talking like this, pummy.
What?
I hear people talking like this. It just puts me off them immediately. When you have a conversation with somebody and they immediately make it about them. And I can tell you, 90% of people do that. Maybe even more. I don't have the statistics. You can make them up on the spot, but I would say 1 in 10 people is able to actually listen and not make it about them.
Mhm.
1.
Sure.
It's rare.
Okay, so that's the thing to practice today. That's the
Yeah,
thing to practice today. It's just a little bit of real listening. Real listening. Just hear what's being said and not necessarily listen to respond or
right.
to give your experience or your perspective, but just to listen.
Well,
Would be amazing.
Congo Chris says, not surprising. We live in a society of neurotic, narcissistic adult children. And I don't actually disagree.
True story.
Hmm?
But it is. It's the cameras out all the time. It's the performance. You know, you see it. You see it on TikTok and all of those things.
Yes.
Everybody is always setting up the camera to perform for the
Mhm.
likes.
Oh, not only that, but they set up the they switch on their camera and record other people's misery. I mean, like you see these people being beaten up or whatever. You know, you'll see there was this hideous movie the other day of this kid beating up a teacher. Now, instead of the person who's filming it getting involved and trying to help the victim, they want to film it because there's a perverse incentive structure. So now what the real value is for you is to not get involved and do the right thing, which all of us agree in a clear, lucid moment. The appropriate activity, especially if you're a man and you see a woman in duress or in stress or in danger, the correct thing to do as a man is to go in and help. And if you catch a couple of punches or whatever, that's what you're meant to do as a good
Call
man.
or
It's
call
gonna-
call
Awesome.
security.
But
Get somebody
instead of
in. There's a
using this instead of using this to call security, what are these people doing? They're filming it.
I did
It's
not see the
it's
video of the
plastic.
kid beating up the teacher, but I
Oh my
read
god.
about him for
Oof.
something. He took away his some kind of video game device during
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
But there is a video yesterday or the day before of a guy just shooting a homeless person in the street. And there is a person watching. It's not a quick action fight sequence, whatever. This homeless person is just sitting there on the side of the pavement. The other one takes the time, takes out his gun, gets it all ready, and just, I'm like, this person is just shooting. He's not even saying to other people in the restaurant
Oh
that
my
he's in or whatever, this is about, or just shouting at the guy. Like everybody just wants to record. They
But you
want the
see,
next trending video. They want to
perverse
record the next trending video.
perverse incentives. So I think what we need to do as a society is we need to start charging people who are filming this stuff with being accessories to a crime. You're not
Are
just
they
an
not though?
well, they are. To my mind, they are because they're the ones who are putting it out. And listen, this stuff makes the rest of society neurotic as well. I don't want to see people being shot. I don't want to see people being beaten up. I know it happens, right? I know that this is something that happens. But the fact that these are the kinds of videos that we're now that gather views, that gather likes, that these are the kinds of things that people are forced to watch whenever they're scrolling. It should be there should be a cost to this. You want to stop it? I mean, I saw the most brilliant thing yesterday, which we can maybe talk about in the burning platform, and you and I have been talking about a lot. It feels like 5 minutes, but we've been going for like half the show
What?
already.
Have
Um,
we've missed headlines, Gareth?
I know. We'll get to it. We've got lots to do in the burning platform, and Mighty Jamie's coming in. We've got another guest coming. It's going to be a good show. Anyway, I saw this brilliant clip yesterday, which I retweeted or re-Instagrammed or whatever it is, Warren Buffett saying, if we wanted to reduce inflation, it would be very easy. He says the moment the inflation rate goes above 3%, that invalidates the ability of a congressperson to run again. He said they'll immediately make a law. I mean, can you imagine they make a law that if it goes over 3%, you cannot run for office again? Those politicians will be tap dancing like cats on a hot tin roof. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. Now, we need to have a mechanism by which we change this perverse incentive where people will film someone being abused, where people will react emotively on social media, where we actually take away some kind of sting from their ability to generate attention for themselves. I'm not saying we need a social credit score like in China. I think that's also twisted. But I do think that there needs to be a cost. It's like people can go in and say, you know what, you're overreacting or you're not involved or whatever. And that person's clout drops. Because I do think we live in a society where a bunch of people who are clout chasing and they're doing themselves and society no good. There's got to be a way we can at least we've got to be able to
We need
mitigate.
a sin bin for it, right? We need a sin bin for it. I know
Yeah,
we can all block. Like I've blocked, what's his name? The guy with all of the crime news on Twitter.
Yusuf,
Yeah, Yusuf Abramji.
right?
He still bleeds through, but I have blocked Yusuf and all of, because for some reason there
Too
was
much.
a time when I just saw all his, like he's always putting out videos of some kind of CCTV camera
Mm.
of a hijacking, of a
Oh
shooting,
my
of a
God.
this, of a that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know we can do that, but wouldn't it be amazing if there was like a sin bin like button next to the like button? Shall I tweet Elon Musk?
I think so. Let him know. Tell him this is what we need. All
Because
right.
that would be
Well,
cool.
I mean, believe it or not, we've spent the entire hour talking about this because we care about it so much. But it seems that a lot of people in the comments agree. I mean, there's this comment from Chris who says they don't even record other people's misery. They will set up a camera and film themselves crying on the post on social media. It's not just neurotic, it's deeply narcissistic, which I agree on. And there was this brilliant video I saw this week, which is also kind of in this line. There's this woman in Britain and she's filming herself. She's a fitness influencer. So she's filming herself in the park doing a like fitness update or whatever. She's got
Oh, I saw that.
a little camera on a tripod and she's set up and there's this bench in the background and this other dude comes and sits on the bench and she goes, excuse me, could you move to that bench over there? And he goes, no. She goes, but I'm a fitness influencer and I'm making a video. He goes, so?
No, my favorite is when when she said my followers, and he said, "Oh, you've got followers, do you? Are you Jesus or something?"
Exactly. And I just suddenly thought her whole world came,
Grumpy old men.
but I loved it because this grumpy
Grumpy
old man,
old men.
he gave her perspective because her whole world is this world of followers and making videos. And, she's like a typical Gen Z kid and he doesn't give a shit. He's not interested in her at all. And she says, oh, but it's very unfair. I've set up my camera. And he goes,
I
I don't
was
give a
here
shit.
first.
I sit here every day. Go and find yourself another bench.
When she said they don't want to see an old man, he was like, "Huh? I'm an old man now, am I?"
Yeah.
Guys, look for it. It will make your day. If you haven't seen it,
Love
look for it. It will make your day. That grumpy old man. Oh, the world needs more grumpy old people. Just to
I think
give you
so.
perspective, just to beat
Yeah.
you back with
So
perspective.
everybody's homework today is go and look up Emotivism. And I'll find the title of that book as well for you. In fact, hang on, Pums. I might even have, because I made a note of it on my, I keep lists of everything, right?
I know. I've seen the notebooks with your very, very neat handwriting.
Yep. Emotivism. It's by McIntyre. Let me just find this.
Ah,
Alistair McIntyre.
Alistair McIntyre.
ALASDAIR. Alistair McIntyre, MacNtyre.
What?
Sorry,
McIntyre. What kind of a macker are you?
MacIntyre. So go and look that up. That's the book. He's actually at Notre Dame University.
Alasdair or Alistair?
Alasdair.
And it says here philosopher.
Yeah,
I like him already. He also looks like a grumpy old man.
He does. And
Scottish
I think he's
American. He must be grumpy.
Got to be so grumpy, right? Presbyterian. Can you imagine?
Jesus, he's 94 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Gareth, I had such an amazing conversation 2 days ago with a lady who's now deceased, whose now deceased husband started the Financial Mail here in South Africa.
Yes.
Oh, but she is effervescent. She is 79 years old, and we had like afternoon drinks. There were 4 of us. And in the next table, she was staying at a quite a boutique little hotel here in Rosebank. And at the next table, there was another lady who was obviously also staying at the hotel, having her afternoon glass of wine. And she came and started out on her phone. But she was so engrossed in the conversation. And I mean, her name's Hazel, holding court with us. She made us laugh and laugh and laugh. This lady on the other side, if I were her, I would have come across and joined our table because I would have just been like, listen. She was so engrossed in our conversation. When we left and said to her, we're sorry if we were like disturbing and made a lot of noise. She was like, listen, I loved your conversation. It was dazzling. I'm going to introduce you to Hazel. You might have to interview her. She's got fantastic stories. What a life she's lived.
Sounds amazing. I'd love to meet her.
What a life she's lived. A life that spans South Africa, London, LA. In the heady days of it all, when it was all starting out and all happening, you talk about history all the time. And when you read it, it feels like history was very long ago and very far away. But her husband was an RAF pilot in World War II, because that was the age. He was a little bit older than her, obviously. But I mean, imagine that, having had that life experience.
She sounds bloody brilliant, and we must get her on the show.
You must get her on the show. She'll be amazing.
We're at just after 7 o'clock. So when we come back, we got the burning platform. Yeah, stick around. Pumi and I are very ill-disciplined this morning. We've been talking, and we're late now.
We're going to start with the headlines.
When we come back, it's the burning platform. Mighty Jamie joins us, and we've got a special guest as well, someone who I think you're going to enjoy hearing from, Professor Thabo Legwaila, who is an acting tax ombud. And we're going to find out about the rights of a taxpayer, which I think are things that we all care about. So we're going to get into that just now. That's all coming up.
Since we moved into our wonderful, new, beautiful Cliff Central house, I had to be very stern on who can use which bathroom.
Which bathrooms have we been using? We've been exiled outside, so we have to walk like 3 kilometers to go to the new bathrooms.
When guys use the toilet, they always leave the toilet seat up, always. When I sit down on the toilet, I fall into it. Why must I fall into the toilet? I haven't caught anyone, but I'm onto someone. There's somebody who I've almost clocked the toilet usage. After lunch, hui. After snack, hui. And I'm always calculating the distance. If this person comes back into the office too quickly, they're obviously using the women's toilet.
Well, we had the uncancelled event on Thursday. Very successful, very fun. We had Gareth and Anati and Eugene Koza. The best catering I've ever seen. Just Teddy. And we had some leftovers. And when we woke up the next morning to come clean the place up, they were gone.
Platters are gone. Who took them? I am not accusing anyone, but I might think, bona, somebody plus lebang.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
I mean, obviously we're talking about second-hand cars here, because there's really there's no more really lemon new cars. So we're talking about second-hand cars here, and the thing that makes it a lemon, I suppose, is the thing we've got to talk about. What makes a car a lemon?
Yeah,
and that is how it is treated.
Yeah,
over its lifetime.
100%.
Okay, so then that kind of stands to reason that if a car becomes a lemon as a result of how it's treated, look into its history.
Okay.
The best way to avoid a lemon is look into the car's history. If you can, how many owners has the car had? You see if you can do a history check on the car, a vehicle check. Has the car been in accidents? One of the biggest things, or should I say the best things you can do when you buy a car, is if you don't have the skill yourself,
or what, assessing
accident damage, is take somebody with you that does.
Yeah.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Okay, we are live. Pumi and I are ready to take you into the burning platform this morning. We've got lots of interesting stuff to talk about. We have a special guest, Professor Thabo Legwaila, who is a tax ombudsman, and he will tell us about the rights of taxpayers. Also going to be joined in a short while by Mighti Jamie, who is a researcher, analyst, commentator, and no stranger to the burning platform.
It's Legwaila, like
Legwaila. Oh, sorry.
There you go. Well done, young man.
Did we spell it wrong, or
no? It's spelled correctly. It's the way you say it.
Pronunciation is shitty. Sorry, Pums. Thank you for sorting that out. Legwaila. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, we'll get to the prof in a second. There's lots of stuff to talk about this morning. Not only in tax, but we're going to talk about some of the things that Jamie wants to talk about, possible cabinet reshuffles, as well as something we had last week with the Nigerian elections. We'll see how those turned out. But first, let us introduce our special guest for this morning. Prof, it's a great pleasure to have you here, and thank you for joining us in the studio this morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you very much, Gareth and Pumi, to have me here. I just heard you guys pride yourselves with mispronouncing my surname. It's Legwaila, but don't worry about it. It's difficult for many people. Legwaila, yes.
Legwaila. Got you. All right. Well, once we hear it, we'll get it right from there on, I promise. So, Prof, let's just start off, because, tax has become such a burning issue in South Africa, because I think we all feel like we don't mind paying a little bit of tax to be a part of society. Tax is an important part of what makes a country work. Everybody makes a contribution. There's some things that only the state can do, et cetera, et cetera. But I think in South Africa, a lot of people are upset about the tax situation. Whether they pay a little or a lot, to everybody, it's a lot of money that they earned and they have to hand over. But we worry because we see how it's misappropriated, and we see how, last week this time, we were talking about the Minister of Finance tabling his budget, and he said, oh no, they've brought in more money than they expected. Now that's our money as the citizens of South Africa, and we're hoping, Pumi, that it gets used for the right reasons, but I don't think a lot of us feel a lot of confidence in the system. So, Prof, what is the system for taxation in South Africa? How does it vary between South Africa and other countries in the world?
Yeah, that's an interesting one to start off with, Gareth. That is why tax is compulsory. It's not optional. And, we always say the unfortunate thing about tax is that, you cannot hold it back and say, I'm not happy with how government is using my money, therefore I'm not going to pay. You've got to pay anyway. You've got other avenues of dealing with raising your dissatisfaction or your satisfaction with how government uses money. I mean, if you think about it, if tax was optional, even people who are happy with how government uses the money would rather not pay, and that is common throughout the world. So our system works pretty much the same as many other, well, pretty much same as all other countries in the world. You've got compulsory a system of taxation. You pay the tax, government takes your money, and then government decides on how government is going to use the money. You touched on an important point about the Minister of Finance saying that we have collected more than we needed to. And I think that one of the things that I would applaud about that situation is that that talks to a lot about voluntary compliance by our taxpayers, and we like that. But then also, let's not forget that what the minister then did was that the minister then introduced measures of kind of bringing back to the taxpayers what he could. We know about the incentive that was brought up. It's got its own purpose, but the incentive for usage of renewable energy like solar, that's like government saying we're going to forego some taxes in order to allow this particular activity that we would like to happen. Secondly, where the minister says, okay, I understand that we have you owe taxes and you pay taxes, but I'm going to ease the burden a little bit by adjusting taxes for inflation. So I'm not going to continue taking more than I should. I will allow taxpayers some form of reprieve by way of adjusting taxes for inflation, which is a good thing. So we haven't seen this all the time. There were years that there was too much pressure on the minister to collect taxes and therefore did not do that what we call budget creep. So it's like a very good sweetener to paying taxes.
Well, we're going to run a poll as we do on Thursdays now and let people cast their own opinion out there. And we're interested to hear what people think, because everybody in South Africa is a taxpayer. It's not just income tax. We have corporate taxes, we have customs and duties, we have VAT, and everybody pays some part of their day to government. I mean, if you're really unlucky, you spend 4 to 5 months of the year working for government. And many people would say that doesn't sound very fair to them. And other people will say, no, this is absolutely fair. This is a form of redistribution of resources, which the country needs so desperately. So it depends on what point of the political spectrum you find yourself on. But I'm sure we have lots of questions from Jamie and Pumi as well. I'm going to let them have a chance. You're a tax ombud, though, and that is a very specific role. So tell us quickly, Prof, what that means.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. So our role in this entire tax system is to enhance the trust, enhance the confidence in the tax system to improve compliance. So whilst, there are very many different players in this, SARS being the biggest player which collects the taxes, SARS being entrusted with that role, but that role also comes with a lot of power to collect. The power to collect basically says that SARS should be able to collect from the good and the bad, those that would comply voluntarily, and those that would only comply when they are shown the keys to jail. So SARS needs those powers. One of the powers that I would talk about very easily is the third-party appointment, where if you owe SARS, SARS is able to go to your bank or to your employer to say, pay us from Gareth's bank account, or do not pay his salary next month, pay it to SARS because he owes SARS. So you need those powers. But you can understand that drastic as those powers are, they are only used in special circumstances where a taxpayer is really recalcitrant, doesn't want to pay. However, there needs to be a kind of like monitoring system or reference point where we are able to make sure that the SARS applies those powers correctly and only in the right circumstances and follows procedure. Now, we've got instances where, for whatever reason, procedures would not be followed properly. That's where our office comes in. Our office then comes as an avenue for taxpayers who are aggrieved, who find that the service that they receive from the SARS is not what they should receive. They are not treated the way they should be. That feel that the procedures or the service or the administrative elements are not properly adhered to. And then we go back to SARS and call them to order, basically recommend to them that they should follow the processes.
So you can be an ally to people who feel that they've been treated unjustly by the tax system and by people who SARS owes money to, frankly, because a lot of us pay in advance and then SARS holds onto our money for 2-3 years. And if we're lucky, we get it back eventually. But we can go to you for that kind of thing. We could say to you, they're treating us unfairly, and you will help us sort that out, right?
Absolutely. So you would, in order for us to not overreach, we require you to actually go to the SARS first. Let's say, for example, as you're saying, there's a refund due to you. We require you to go to the SARS first and say, please refund me my money. And then SARS, if SARS doesn't within the limited time or within the given time, you are able to then come to us and say, this is my problem. And then, this is one of the issues that we deal with quite a lot, where taxpayers are not refunded on time. And with systems like the VAT, I heard you mention various taxes that we are in the country, and I'm very impressed with that. But with systems like the VAT, we work on a refund system where you pay, and then if you are likely to overpay, and then you need to be refunded. And because our small businesses depend a lot on liquidity, if you're not refunded on time, that might lead to the demise of your business. So we help you with. We also make sure that you get paid interest on that. Sometimes you don't even know that you should be paid interest on the amount that is due. Like you say in your example, if SARS has held on to your money for 2 years, held on to 100,000 rand, 100,000 rands in 2 years from now, it's not 100,000 rands. So we need to ensure that you get your money back with interest. Yeah.
Someone's commenting your look right now for me. Someone's commenting on the way that you're looking at the prof.
I don't know what that means, but I think we were remiss in the starting of the show, Prof. I want to because we're not like all these other stations. So you're free. Yeah, we're not going to be judged by us, and I'm so glad that you actually decided to come and join us, because I think one of the things that South Africans are, Jamie. Okay, sorry about that. Can you not hear us? Is that what it is?
No, we
Jamie?
got you.
No, I thought I was muted.
Oh, no, you're not.
Okay. The screen says
Jamie
that.
arrives late and then he wants to touch things here in the studio, guys. He must also be called to order.
Welcome, Jamie. Good to see you again. Jamie will be climbing in here hook, line, and sinker in a second. But carry on, Paul.
Because I think the right now South Africans have got such a lot of pent up anger that is rightly or wrongly directed at a particular sphere of government. And that then results in us feeling like, because the one way that we interact a lot with the government is through taxation. And so there's definitely lots of calls of, why must I participate in this manner? Right. And I'm one of the people that were very angry actually with the minister talking about how record collections, because at a time when people's pockets are so pinched, not just by inflation, but by also a regime of kind of the interest rates going up, but everything is so much. And for the goal of it, for the minister to stand up and say, we have collected more tax than ever before, is quite irritating, especially when you know that the way that the tax is used and that your money is being held on to. And I like you talking about a reasonable time. So what is that reasonable time that I can wait to hear back from SARS? Because they don't answer their phones. So even if you try and go back to them, they're not answering their phones. So it's a useless thing. So what's the reasonable time? How much time should I let lapse before I come to you to say, hey, these buggers haven't given me back my money?
Right. Thanks for me. Reasonable time. is not the right word, actually, if you go about it, because the taxes are governed by law, as I said before. So depending on what tax it is that you paid or you are due for a refund, and the processes that are involved in that particular tax, you might find that your refund should be paid in 45 days or should be, paid within a shorter period. So let's use 45 days as an example. If you are due for a refund, it needs to be paid within 45 days. It doesn't get paid in 45 days. SARS requests you to provide more information, for example, your IRP5 or whatever, to verify. Remember that they need to be accurate to verify. You've got they've got a further 30 days, for example, to then refund you. If they don't, that is when you come to us in order to resolve that. But I need to alert you to what you talk about, people being upset with the minister, whatever the minister said. There's about 60 million people in the country, so we've got probably potentially 60 million different views about what the minister said last week. Now, the point there is there are very many different avenues of raising very many different things that we deal with in the country. And it has to be like that. It has to be like that in terms of which there are specialist areas. We are concerned with the procedural, service and administrative matters that you may have against the SARS. That's our role. We need to limit ourselves to that. Otherwise, we overreach. You find that we're going to duplicate attempts at resolving an issue. Like, for example, I would say to you, if your car breaks down, you don't take your car to the dentist, right? You take your car to wherever you go, to a mechanic to fix that. So what I'm saying is, you being concerned and worried about how the minister allocates the money, or the fact that we've received a lot of money, it's not a matter that should be dealt with by the by the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. For example, an example that I would give you is one of the things that I'm closest to, that I hear a lot and that I'm very sympathetic with, is people, for example, pensioners, telling you that I am old. I've been paying tax for 45 years. I should be absolved from paying tax going forward. I earn a little. I only receive about 70% of what I used to get. I am sick. I've got a lot of medical expenses. Please tell the minister not to tax me anymore. And I'm saying, whether I agree with that or not, unfortunately, I can't help you. You are able to go to the Ministry of Finance, to the National Treasury, and the National Treasury has a process in terms of which every year they receive comments from taxpayers in their legislative amendments. They consider that. They meet with the taxpayers. They meet with the with tax practitioners to get advice on how to change the tax system. Unfortunately, something like that, although I might be passionate about it, it's something totally outside of my ambit.
So just speaking of ambit then, right? So I understand if I don't get my refund, you're the person that I can come and talk to. What other areas can I come to complain to you about and expect some kind of assistance?
Yes. So as I said, there is the issues of procedure. Like, for example, you get a third-party appointment where your bank deducts your money and pays it over to SARS on SARS's instruction, but you have not received a letter from the SARS to say you owe tax. They need to follow the procedure.
Okay.
Secondly, you can come to us about issues of service. Like you correctly said. Sometimes you call SARS and your calls are not answered. The service that they are providing, it's not up to standard, if that is the case, and that you can complain about, and other administrative issues. We cannot deal with issues that are of a policy nature, like I said, with the pensioners, but also we cannot deal with issues that are subject to objection and appeal, or matters that are before the courts. We cannot deal with that. So, and that does not mean that there are no avenues to deal with that. I just want to emphasize that our role in the entire tax system, in the big scheme of things, is to help you with that. And that is why, Pumi, last year or the year before last, we started a campaign where we talk about taxpayers' rights and how much the taxpayers' rights matter. I believe in us helping taxpayers be aware of and access and exercise their rights, like the right to finality. Like, for example, if you complain, or if you object to the SARS, there needs to be a point where SARS deals with your matter and concludes it. You can't wait forever. I mean, secondly, one other right that is very important is the right to confidentiality. If you provide SARS with your information, and you a SARS employee cannot then go like, did you know how much Pumi earns? Pumi earns so much, and then they tell everybody how much you earn or how much you don't earn. So there are those fundamental rights that need to be, taxpayers need to be aware of and access and exercise. Yeah.
And what kind of recourse or kind of relief then do you offer taxpayers when they come to you? What kind of relief can they expect from you?
Absolutely. So the relief would differ from case to case. So if you come to us and say, SARS has not provided me with reasons why they came to a different amount to me. So you paid your 50,000 rands tax, and then SARS comes back to you and says, no, there's an amount due by you of an additional 20,000. You've got the right to go back to SARS and say, SARS, tell me why. How did you get to this amount, right? In that case, and SARS doesn't provide you with that, in that case, you can come to us and say, and tell us that, and then we are able to say to SARS, provide Pumi with the reasons why you've come up to this. And if, for example, the issue is that you disagree with SARS about that same amount, right? You're able to, and you tell SARS that, SARS, I did my calculations, they're different from your calculations. I should have only paid 48,000. I actually paid 50. You need to refund me. And SARS says, no, you should have paid 70. You're able to object. SARS cannot say, no, we don't want to hear you out. If they don't want to hear you out, you're able to come to us, and then we are able to say to SARS, have this discussion with Pumi, allow her to object, and if you feel that you don't have enough knowledge of your taxes for you to have a debate with the SARS on this, you've got a right to legal representation. And SARS cannot say, no, we're not going to talk to anybody about this, only you. No. We're able to say to SARS, allow Pumi to bring. Exactly.
Don't talk to my lawyer.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people. What last question?
Okay, just quickly, I want to throw in the poll so that people can start voting. And then I know you've got a question, and then Jamie's got some as well. But the poll is up. So we want you to vote in the poll, which you can vote on YouTube for. And here it is, the various options. And of course, this doesn't relate to the Tax Ombudsman, but to tax in general. Tax is A, theft. B, the cost of being part of society. C, unfair and penalizes certain people more than others. Or D, the fairest way to distribute resources. Go and vote in the poll. We will compare the results at the end of the show.
And also, when you're there voting,
you don't have E, all of the above, and F, none of the above.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, this is my last question about the way in which we are dealt with. So the customer service from SARS officials. Very many people, especially because a lot of my friends, small business owners, having issues with the stank attitude that one deals with from these officials who think like this is their uncle's house. Can I come and complain to you about that kind of stuff too?
Yeah, Pumi, I would like you to complain to the SARS first. I would like you to go to the SARS has an office called the CMO, Complaints Management Office, that deals with that. SARS is not, SARS does not want to ill-treat taxpayers. SARS understands that you are the biggest clients. You need to, like I said, we want to encourage voluntary compliance, and voluntary compliance is good for the country. You know why? Because if people comply voluntarily, we use less resources to collect the taxes. So we would employ fewer people to collect, as opposed to having huge audit teams because people don't comply voluntarily. So SARS is interested in that. SARS wants to hear that if there are those concerns about you being ill-treated by their and I think this needs to come out. This needs to be known, and SARS, I think, makes an effort to make taxpayers know that their service is good. I mean, they've got the going that says at your service. They want that. So your first port of call is to go to them. They would like to hear you. And if you are not heard, then you can come to us, because then we would be able to talk to them about them improving their service in that regard, if they have not improved it from you directly raising the complaint with them.
Okay, Jamie, your mic is on.
No, I don't have any questions.
You're not muted.
You don't have any questions for the SARS?
No questions about house.
No, I think he's covered a lot of the ground. I think a lot of the questions that you guys had have been dealt with. I think the only thing I'd ask is, what's the turnaround time on a dispute being resolved once it's lodged with your office?
Yeah, we work on a 15 working day turnaround, and I must say that we pride ourselves in the fact that we actually resolve most, like a high percentage of our complaints during that time. Obviously, there would be challenges, for example, where we require information, be it from the SARS or the taxpayer, and there's delays with that information being provided to us. That tends to cause some delays. But also, Jamie, adding on to what follows from your question would be, then when we have received these complaints and we resolve them, does SARS actually listen? And if they do, how much do they listen? One of the biggest success stories of our office and the interaction between our office and SARS is that SARS implements about 98% of our recommendations.
Wow.
98%.
Wow.
I mean, that is more than distinction, right? I mean,
that's fantastic.
More than the pass rate.
Yeah. So with the 98% and the remaining 2, somebody would ask what happens to them. The remaining 2, they need to justify to us as to why they don't implement, and they do that. So there's a variety of reasons why they would not implement, but they need to explain that to us, and they actually do. So I think that in the end, that kind of like shows how much impact or how they hold us, how they understand what they do, the quality of the work that we do actually as well, assisting taxpayers at that rate. Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a
That's impressive.
Because Jamie may be out of questions, Prof, but I want to know, because our SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, said the other day, and may even have been towards the end of last year, that South Africans should know that a tax revolt is a very bad idea. And while many South Africans are compliant, and he hopes South Africans will continue to be compliant, he's in a little bit of an awkward position there. And I mean, again, this doesn't relate to your office of Tax Ombudsman, because it's clear to me that you guys are our allies if we have an issue with SARS, and that there are rights that a taxpayer is entitled to. But ultimately, I think the SARS commissioner is in a difficult position, because he knows that people are furious at the moment with wasteful expenditure by the government, by all kinds of things that are going on, nefarious and dodgy things that are going on, once our taxes have been taken in and distributed by the financial ministry. I think he's in a difficult position. He's trying to convince us that you have to pay your taxes and you should abide by the law and all of that stuff. But the average South African is steadily tending towards less and less respect and admiration for the law. And I think this is a very hard balance. There are countries where we have seen tax revolts. Income tax, by the way, I was talking to an American the other day. income tax was only something brought in America in about the 1920s. You know, before that, income tax wasn't really a thing. And many people say that in South Africa, you know, very poor people shouldn't be taxed at all. Or in South Africa, that it is unfair that people are taxed at different levels because we all have to contribute to society. What do you think the ultimate outcome of this is, and how much room is there in South Africa for debate around these things? Because it seems to me that we can debate all kinds of policy. You know, in society, we can talk about this and that, and we can have arguments about how social welfare is done and how health is conducted and how education is. But it doesn't seem that the politicians are ever too keen for us to have discussions around a tax system.
Yeah. So a tax system, once again, when you talk about a tax revolt, it is, we know that any form of revolt would result in chaos, firstly, whether it achieves the purpose or not. But I am a big fan of people using the right avenues to correct the particular wrongs. So, for example, for me, and I'll just use two casual examples. For me, if money is being embezzled and money is being misused, why would the first port of call not be to get the person that misuses the money or steals the money arrested? That's the most direct result of misappropriating money. Get them arrested. Now, if you feel that the government is not doing enough to bring the people that are in the wrong to book, you've got elections to correct that. There are some people that are happy with government. There are people that might not be happy with government. And a democratic society or a democratic system allows us to go to the polls and express that. I don't think that the tax system is the right way to correct things that we are not happy with, for example, roads, education, electricity, the police, etc. I think that we need to be direct about that. There are very many avenues that we have to correct the particular things. You know, for example, the Department of Transport, or is it roads, has the responsibility to ensure that our roads are in proper order. If they don't, then you need to go through the avenues of that department to complain. The tax system, in all of this, the tax system hasn't done anything wrong. I haven't heard anybody say that the SARS or the tax system is wrong in this way. You could say in what you just said earlier, Gareth, to say that people are complaining that the poor people should not be taxed. That is something that the tax system knows. And that is why our tax system is progressive. Progressive in that the lower you earn, there are people that there's a level below, which I think is about 100,000 right now. If you earn about 100,000 rands or less, you don't pay tax. That is in recognition of the fact that
you don't pay income tax.
We don't pay income tax. Do you understand? You don't. If the progressivity, we try to also include it in other systems like the VAT, in terms of which we say that certain goods are exempt. You don't pay tax when you're buying certain basic goods. That is just to say we want to alleviate the tax burden on, just to make sure that the people who are the poorest, who can just only afford the basics, do not pay tax. However, we will, and it's progressive like that. So if there are people that are able to buy expensive German vehicles, etc., and people who are able to buy expensive alcohol, whiskeys, and all that, we would put excise on that at a very high rate. We would, for example, put carbon tax on those vehicles, and obviously you also pay tax, VAT on that. So the progressivity is pretty much everywhere in our tax system. So the tax system is not oblivious of those requests or logical demands that the poor not be more disadvantaged by the tax system.
Which, look, you talk about progressive. I know in 2018, 2019, I think, South Africa became one of very few countries in the world that doesn't tax sanitary products, right? Because like a tax on only the women folk because they bleed was, and just that, you know, there was quite a big kind of push to take away the tax from sanitary products and for the government to say, okay, we hear you, and allow that. I think does talk to how progressive our tax regime is.
Well, I mean, where I also think tax is progressive is they're constantly coming up with new taxes. I mean, anywhere government can find a way to, no, they do. And they've tried to find a way to tack on a tax to just about everything. I mean, we know we're already paying a huge amount of duties on fuel, for example, and that means that everything goes up as a result of fuel going up. We know that customs and excise, you know, where if I order something from overseas, I end up paying more to the government for having ordered that than I do to the person who's actually supplying me with the goods. So it's become unfeasible for me to do that. And I think that while they can justify in all sorts of ways that they're trying to protect local industry or whatever, I don't know that that's true. I think that they're just on the take. And I think government, anywhere in the world, governments are trying their best to find new ways and innovative ways of getting money out of their citizens.
Very true, to a very large extent. And like you say, there is very many different ways of, you're saying, justifying it or explaining it. Like you yourself mentioned the reason why government might want to tax you more when you're importing goods, because we want to protect the local guys. And the local guys would say, if you allow our people to import, then we're not able to make money out of what we produce as proudly South Africans. So there's those many things. Like, for example, government would introduce the sugar tax. You know the sugar tax, right? The money that you pay extra. Yeah. The point being, look, we're trying to get people to live healthy, but at the same time, the consumption of sugar costs government a lot extra. Therefore, we need to collect that more in order to handle or deal with the negative externalities that come with the consumption of sugar. Whether it's the right thing or not, what government does is gives you an avenue to contact the National Treasury and say, I, Gareth, do not agree with this tax. I think it should be adjusted. And they listen to that and consider and make a decision, an informed decision based on what would have been submitted.
But Prof, will they listen? It's fine that they've got these. I mean, Pumi and I both know that we could sit here and wax lyrical every day about all the things we think are unfair or fair and make suggestions. But most of the time, these things just get thrown in the rubbish bin, don't they?
They don't necessarily get thrown in the rubbish bin. What you would think about, Gareth, is that there are two competing views. There are two competing, or in most instances, more than two competing views, where somebody says, the Department of Health says, you know, there is obesity in this country costs us a lot. Or they say alcohol consumption or alcohol-related illnesses or alcohol-induced crimes put pressure on the health system. And therefore, we need more money. And then one says, okay, let's increase tax on alcohol so that it directly or indirectly fills that gap from that.
But
now,
the obvious argument against this is the idea of a carbon tax. And this is not a uniquely South African thing. This is happening all over the world, where they're going to charge you more for a gas guzzling car, or they're going to attach carbon credits or debits to every person, depending on how far they travel, whether you fly, whether you use this means of transport or another. And that money does not directly go to fighting our carbon emissions in any which, it just goes into the big pot that government will then use for all their other purposes. So it doesn't directly go to, I mean, like the sugar tax doesn't go directly to the health department, obviously. So these things can end up in the tenders of, some cousin of some minister, because they're busy supplying things that are never supplied, and they can go and buy themselves a bottle of Johnny Blue afterwards without having to worry about the taxation on it.
But Gareth Mapil, how do you know whether a particular 100 Rand or 1,000 Rand that you contributed to carbon tax is going to go there or not? I think that the idea of ring fencing is the idea of ring fencing. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, because it is for the expenditure or the expenditure part of government to actually look at where the money is needed the most and to make that adjustment. Because let's say, and things change every year. You don't know whether our education is going to require more when we have collected a lot on carbon tax, and then we decide the most prudent thing to do is to put it into education. I just think that that volition needs to be put on a trusted government in order to decide where it's best to spend.
And I think that's the issue, right? And I know we've spent quite an inordinate amount of time talking about the issue of tax, but I think that's the fulcrum on which it turns. I think for a lot of South Africans is the trusted government, is we have lost trust.
Yeah, and that's a separate issue. That's not the Tax Ombudsman's fault.
It's not.
And it's not his fault. But I do want to bring in Jamie. He's got a bunch of other things here. And Prof, feel free to join in here on things that are not related to tax. But Jamie's coming with a
won't judge you.
No, not at all. So, Jamie, first of all, we've heard a lot about these cabinet reshuffles. Is it finally going to happen? Is the president finally going to actually put his money where his mouth is, or in the sofa, or wherever? I mean, what's the story here?
Well, it looks as if there are going to be some cabinet reshuffles happening within the next 7 days. The days keep shifting, but we saw Kodongwana getting sworn in as a member of parliament, which opens up a space for someone else to come in from outside, because you're only allowed to have 2 cabinet appointments which come from outside the National Assembly. So what you've seen is rearranging strategically of various MP slots so that the president can have some room. We saw a couple of people being sworn in earlier in the year so that, Paul Mashatile, for instance, can take up the vice presidency position. We'll see what happens with the Ministry of Electricity, which I think is one of the ones people will be looking out for. People are saying that Sputla might be the person who comes in. He was the premier of Tshwane.
No, he was the mayor.
Of Tshwane. And people are saying, well, if he comes in, is he going to be able to deliver everything that he can? Because he also left Tshwane under a shadow of controversy. If you recall, there were protests and people in Soshanguve and several other areas said that they were not happy with Sputla. So that's one of the things that everyone will be looking at. And the other question fundamentally is, what can you do if your benches don't have the necessary technical skills to resuscitate the cabinet? Because, I mean, people will say, the Minister of Police has not done a good job. They'll say the Minister of Education has not done a good job. We know Fikile Mbalula is leaving, but many people feel that he didn't do a good job, with rail and roads. And you could go down a list, some people are not happy with Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. People are not happy with the small business minister, Stella Ndabeni Abrahams.
Jamie, I think you might be better off telling us who people are happy with.
Well,
maybe you'll come up with none.
Publications do grade ministers, and most of them score at an E or worse level. So it's not a strong pool of applicants that he is working with. In the opinion of the media. Which does rate these things. So, I mean, Mail and Guardian, I think, has done annual,
Which they haven't actually in the past, I think 2 years they haven't. This is Cyril Ramaphosa gets a free pass from many media houses because they haven't.
I think they may not have done one last year, but the previous year they definitely did
so
one.
it's interesting that he does get this free pass, but everybody who listens to the show knows Kevin on our first show said there's going to be imminently a cabinet reshuffle. We're still not seeing a cabinet reshuffle, and the date keeps changing.
Are there any ministers that you or Jamie think have done a good job? And perhaps even the Prof. I don't know how, whether he's allowed to deliver comment on these kinds of things. But Prof, if you want to, you're welcome to join in. But Jamie, is there a minister who you think has done a very good job?
I'm very skeptical about the government performance of all cabinets across Africa. So I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't really, I don't have anybody I wake up in the morning saying, thank God this person is in the cabinet.
Who would be your dream? I asked this the other day. If you could advise the president on his cabinet reshuffle and you could pick from anyone across all parties, across every single member of parliament, who would be your dream cabinet?
Okay, so I think I've thought about education a bit. I think I would actually try to get the VC of VITS to become the vice chancellor, not the vice chancellor, minister of basic education, because he has an extensive research background in maths, in physics, and that's one of our weakest areas. And he has competence in actually running an institution with thousands of pupils, so he understands some of the dynamics. And having come from a black background,
Is that Prof Zeblon Vilakazi?
Zeblon Vilagazi. So he would be somebody I would consider for that particular kind of a job. And then if I were to appoint a minister of healthcare, okay, the alternative would be to get someone who's been running either Curo or the AdvTech schools, because they've, I think the AdvTech, they say that they don't actually have a screen for who they choose to come into the school. So there's no entrance test, but they've been able to get consistently 100% matric pass rate, but also close to 100% bachelor's
Yes,
pass
the
rate.
the entrance test is what your parents can afford,
Yeah,
including
of-
all of the extracurricular. The
of
number
course.
of kids who have all sorts of extracurricular
Of course,
help.
but I mean, what you were
is
saying
because
is that
they can afford. The
we can
parents can
take-
afford it.
We take any IQ, we take, so basically, if you're going to the basic education system, you're dealing with a variety of challenges, but you want a teacher or an administrator who says, I don't care what the kid scored in their last test, I can get them to the finish line with a quality pass. So there are obviously challenges between dealing with public education versus private education, where the resources are significantly more. But we spend, I think, what is the number for our basic education? 295 billion a year on basic education. So we're spending a lot of money compared to the other side of countries, but we're not getting value for that money. So I would consider those two. And then in healthcare, I would go to either Bara or some of the Cape Town hospitals and pick whoever is the manager of that hospital, who, if they have good credentials, and put them in the ministry. We've got a problem where we've got too many cadres who are either in Tanzania or wherever, who are being given these very technical portfolios, and they don't have the managerial expertise to understand what is the basic unit of and function of my ministry and how do I keep it running. If you go to a police station right now, most of them, you can see that there's a problem with policing. You don't have to go far. Just in the police station, you can see there's nothing here that is going to come out. And if you go to a clinic, it's the same. From the long queues, the poor quality of service, you can just tell that these are people who are not working with their basic unit of function. So that's why I'm nonplussed. I would try to get technical people and try to find, for instance, in the policing, I would need to get somebody who's done detective work, somebody who's done field work, and somebody who understands the
Jamie,
nexus of the system.
All
But
of
I'm
this is
not-
good, but we're
I'm not the
dealing with
guy,
it.
so I can't
Yeah,
do
I
it.
know. I wish. I
No,
wish
but
from your mouth
I
to
mean-
Cyril's ears. But Pumi, we know we're dealing with it with a party who doesn't believe in merit. They believe in
But you
cadre
know, I even worse, I think, and nobody, this is my unpopular opinion of the moment, is it really doesn't matter if Cyril Ramaphosa does actually get it together to reshuffle his cabinet. Because Cyril Ramaphosa, what we are dealing with here is we're dealing with the president who's gearing himself up as a dictator. He has consolidated into his office so many extra governmental task teams, task force,
yeah.
and all of those people report to the office of the president. And so what he's done is he's consolidated into his office all of the things that actually should be sitting in parliament, because all of these people that he brings in, whether it's a chief red ribbon cutter or whether it is a minister of electricity or whatever else he's putting in, do not have to go and account in parliament for the things that they do or the things that they say. And Cyril Ramaphosa is not accounting. He doesn't even talk to the media.
I agree with you that there's been a concentration of power in the president, and I think it's been an attempt by him to bypass the failures of his own cabinet
To
and his
be a
own
dictator.
bureaucracy. But I mean, the other side of that equation is that it's not leading to change, right? The task teams, all of that concentration has, if not from a democratic liberal theory tradition, if he was producing results, some people would be okay with that. They'd be saying, okay, he's done this super ministry within the presidency, but now I can see A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But the trick side of the challenge
but
for him is it hasn't actually led to any change. So it comes with
any
none
change
of the
that you
benefits.
are happy with or that you can see. And if there's anything, that is one concession that, a couple of days ago, there are two things that came out. So his weekly letter that he writes from the desk of the president. And the second one, the shocking one this week, was about the grey listing of South Africa being an opportunity for South Africa's system to recalibrate and get things right. What an expensive lesson we're learning.
It's like saying obesity is an opportunity to exercise.
But the second thing, which I think I don't think enough people picked up on this, right? Is his second thing was really his statement around the data situation and what's happening at Eskom. And the words that he used, which for me really did turn on a light, is the fact that you are not happy. This is in his responding affidavit, is that simply because you are not happy with the result that has been yielded does not mean that work has not been done. And that is, that's a light into the mind of the man, right? So simply because we are not happy with what we see as he consolidates power into his office doesn't mean that he is not achieving what he is setting out to achieve.
Well, I think we must be very, very clear that the president's legal argument is not sound, right? Because he said that I don't have this legal duty. But in Mazibuko and in Grootbloem, what they actually said is that government does have a duty and they must take reasonable steps to realize the provision of those Section 27 rights. So what has happened in the last 5 years is that those rights which you're supposed to get, if you were getting 75, now you're getting 50. You cannot go to the court and say, you said I should take reasonable time to achieve the thing, and that doesn't give me an obligation. But the reality is you've taken, in that time you were given, the reasonable time where you were supposed to move from 75 to 100, you've moved from 75 to 50. So you can't say, don't make a finding against me, things have gotten worse, because they should make a finding against you because things have gotten worse, because the obligation was not to take out the 75 and give 50. It was to move in reasonable time using the resources of the government to achieve 100%. So his case is predicated on a misunderstanding of what the court said, because in Grootbloem and in Mazibuko, the government did win the cases, but it was on the basis of you need to progressively realize, not derogate.
I love this. Pumi, your example, I mean, it's just so, it does give you an insight into how he thinks. In other words, because he's been doing some work, whatever that work is, even though it's resulted in nothing. The fact
because you're unhappy with the work that he's doing doesn't mean he's not working.
He's still been doing the work, So this is just typical, like, nonsense. You can tell that this is someone who's hardly ever been responsible for anything in their lives. That they've kind of. Anyway, look. The thing I want to bring us to is we've got a final result on the poll, and I want to get to that shortly. But I did see that Jamie also had some comments to make on the Nigerian election, which we brought up on last week's Burning Platform. Let it never be said that on this show we don't talk about African things. We absolutely dedicate ourselves to making sure that we shine the correct light on all of the stories from our own continent. But Jamie, you've got some comments on how those elections went. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the result has been announced. There's some challenges. Tinubu, who is part of the incumbent party, has been declared the winner, and people are complaining that there was vote buying, election rigging, all manner of things. But one of the critical questions that exists is that the youth of Nigeria backed a totally different candidate. They didn't back him. They backed Peter Obi, and they're very frustrated with the way things are. And the dynamics in Nigeria are such that right now they are over 21% inflation. They have a currency shortage. They've got over 60% youth unemployment. Sounds very similar to South Africa minus the inflation.
Well, the other thing that's very similar to South Africa, what I saw as the results have been trickling in. I mean, I've been very frustrated looking at what's happening on the ground in Nigeria, is the fact that the Nigerian IEC, I think they call INEC, that only of the 90, we spoke about this last week, that there are 90 million registered voters in Nigeria, but they are reporting that only 23 million people showed up to vote. Very similar to South Africa. Right? Is that even a valid election?
It's worse even than South Africa, because
is that even a valid election when you have less than a quarter of the people showing up to vote?
It's very bad, and I wish we had more time.
Jamie, I mean, that's amazing, because Because when young people are clearly on one side of an argument and older people on the other, that indicates that there's going to be some kind of dissension in society as a whole. That the young people who are looking to make their futures in a country, if they feel that that future is being decided by old people who are going with the same old, not necessarily different way, that's going to lead to some huge ructions in society in Nigeria.
But it's also important that young people must learn that you don't vote on Twitter. You don't vote on Twitter. You vote at the ballot box.
But
you
they
must
did
show up.
vote. They did vote. I think the challenge that exists in Nigeria is, number one, the dynamics of a national election, because you need over $20 million to be able to run a national election. And these guys, what they do, the godfathers and all of these guys, the guys who benefit from the tenders and the contracts, they basically give out food parcels in the villages and in what we would call townships and the slums. So if you are not able to go and match that, to go with a rice pack, cooking oil, a yam and plantain and all of this stuff, you're basically not going to be as relevant as the guy who comes every week just to maintain that. And there's allegations there that votes are being bought for 2,000 naira and various amounts, because these old guys, the Tinubus and even Atiku, they have been buying elections for a long time. But the real challenge aside of the election is that Nigeria is run by godfathers. Even Tinubu is alleged to have been a godfather. These are the guys who have been governors and then elevated, and they work behind the scenes to secure states for candidates that they prefer in return for favors. So it's very difficult to hold them to account, because they're not like officially operating in any capacity, but they're known to be running those particular states to their preferences. That's why you'll find that there's a very affluent community in Nigeria, and most of the country is living in abject poverty, and everyone knows that these godfathers are running the show, but how do you hold them to account? So I think what you see in Lagos, the victory of Peter Obi in Lagos, shows that in one of those places, at least the youth were able to prevail. But it's difficult when you come out of the mainland to now of the island to do that in a way that you can replicate across the country, because $20 million is a lot of money, and the youth of Nigeria don't have those kind of logistics. But you're right that it's not just Twitter, but I think, to be fair to them, they did try. It's just like the dynamics are such that it's not as...
Jamie, I'm going to have to call this to order. We want to just thank the professor for coming in this morning, Professor Legwaila, who has been so helpful, and we are all paying attention, because thank goodness for the Tax Ombudsman. Otherwise, we would have no recourse against the predations of SARS. But also, I think your message overall is know your rights. And I appreciate you being part of the show this morning.
We even forgot to do an ad that says, how do people get hold of the Tax Ombud? Where do they find you? What's your email address? What's the...
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Our contact details are on our website, which is www.taxombud.gov.za. You can get all .gov.za. You can get all the information there. I also thank you very much for having us here. It was an interesting discussion. Sorry, Jamie, I couldn't comment on any of what you said, but that is purely because I believe in do unto others as they do unto you, because you haven't commented on any of the things that I said.
No, you covered everything. I didn't have. It's very difficult to say things about a person who's operating in an official capacity in a supporting role as an ombuds, because you are a referee. So I can't say much to a referee unless if you had been implicated as the office of the ombuds in something wrong, I would have said, what happened last week or what happened 6 years ago? But the ombuds is the ombud. So I can't, for me, I think the questions that you asked were comprehensive. And you covered it.
Hey,
you explained
guys,
to people.
Jamie is a politician. That is deftly dealt with, Jamie. Well done.
That was very well done. So I'm very upset that none of us got to comment, and we all could have joined in on the discussion around Didi Mabuza leaving. But we're out of time.
But tell us the answer to the. I know we're out of time. Just a few more minutes. Let's look at the answers to the polls.
Okay. So you'll all be devastated to learn that only 4% of our audience think that tax is the fairest way to distribute resources. You'll be equally unhappy to hear that 22% think it is unfair and penalizes certain people. You may be pleased or not to know that the cost of being part of society 29% of people agree with that. The tax is the cost of being part of society. But overall, the winning category is that tax is theft. 45% of people. so Edward Kieswetter has a work cut out for him.
Whoa.
But we have on our side the Tax Ombudsman. So if you have a complaint or an issue with SARS and they're not responding to you and they're not doing what you need them to do, then please get hold of the professor and his very good people at the Tax Ombud. They will help you to sort out these problems.
15 days turnaround.
98% success rate, which is very, very impressive. taxombud.gov.za. Thank you, Jamie. Very good to have you on the show as always. Thank you, Professor Legwaila, and thank you to Pumi Mashiho. We will see you on Thursday next week for the Burning Platform. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.